You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Every goal you announced, every ambition you posted, every plan you shared with allies, you handed them the knife, and they smiled while sharpening it. You were taught that power is visible, that strength is loud, that competence must be displayed. This is the doctrine of the slaughtered. Let me show you what I mean. Count how many people know your next move. Go ahead. Your business partner, your co-worker, your mentor, the people in your mastermind group, the followers who watch your journey. That number? That's how many people can destroy it. Transparency isn't trust, it's tactical suicide. Right now, someone is watching you. They know your patterns, your schedule, your weaknesses, your next acquisition, your salary negotiation, your product launch timeline. You gave them the surveillance data. You called it authenticity. You posted about your morning routine. They know when you're unavailable. You shared your reading list. They know your ideological framework. You celebrated small wins. They know your milestones before you reach the big ones. Every story, every post, every building and public thread. It's not inspiration, it's reconnaissance. And here's the part that fractures everything. You think this makes you powerful? Visible equals legitimate, present equals important. The algorithm rewards your presence, so you think reality does too. It doesn't. Reality rewards the invisible. The gazelle that announces its route dies at dawn. Florence, 1513. A man sits in exile. Niccolo Machiavelli, tortured, stripped of position, banned from the city he served. No army, no title, no throne. By every visible metric, powerless. And yet, in that exile, in that isolation, in that perceived weakness, he wrote The Prince. Not a book, a weapon, an operating system for power that would architect kingdoms for the next 5 centuries. Here's the contradiction that matters. He had zero formal power. He acted utterly powerless. He lived in obscurity. But his fingerprints are on every empire that followed. How? Because Machiavelli understood what the powerful hide, what they never say out loud, what they execute in shadow while preaching the opposite in light. Strength advertised is strength neutralized. The lion that roars before the hunt starves. He didn't write The Prince as philosophy. He wrote it as forensic analysis, cold dissection of what actually works versus what we're told should work. And his first law, the one that governs everything else, is this. Power is inversely proportional to its visibility. The more they see you coming, the less you can do when you arrive. The more they know your capabilities, the more they can counter them. The more you announce, the more you lose. This isn't theory, this is pattern. Machiavelli watched princes fall because they were too visible, too honest, too transparent about their intentions. They thought displaying power was the same as having it. It's not. Displaying power is an invitation for it to be stripped away. He understood. True lethality operates in darkness. The dagger they never saw, the alliance they didn't know existed, the move that comes from an angle they forgot to defend. He didn't teach morality, he taught lethality. And his doctrine begins with a single surgical insight. If they think you're weak, they stop defending against you. If they dismiss you, you become operationally invisible. And operational invisibility? That's the only sustainable advantage. The most dangerous man in the room is the one you forgot was there. Perceived weakness is operational camouflage. Let me say that again. Perceived weakness is operational camouflage. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must sometimes act against mercy, against faith, against humanity, but he must appear to possess these qualities." Translation is, appear harmless, appear moral, appear incapable, while executing the opposite. Here's how the mechanism works. When you enter any new territory, a company, an industry, a social circle, people assess you fast. Within the first 3 interactions, they categorize you: threat or non-threat, competent or incompetent, player or observer. And here's the scalpel. Once they categorize you as non-threat, they stop watching. You become invisible to their threat radar. Their surveillance apparatus goes elsewhere. They forget you're playing, and that's when you own the board. The Incompetence Shield is deliberate, surgical. You don't accidentally appear weak, you architect it. Ask basic questions you already know. Fumble in areas you've mastered. Let them explain things to you. Nod at obvious information. Struggle visibly with simple tasks. Let them think they're smarter. Let them think they're the architect. Let their ego become your anesthesia. While they perform, you map the system. When you ask a basic question, you're not learning. You're extracting. Every time they correct you, they reveal their framework, their assumptions, their blind spots. Every time they explain something elementary, they expose how they think, their priorities, their fears, their breaking points. You're not playing student, you're running reconnaissance. Here's the tactical breakdown. When entering new territory, play student for 90 days. Speak 30% less than you know. Let them underestimate your IQ by 40 points. Miss obvious opportunities in public. They'll laugh. They'll dismiss you. They'll stop monitoring you. Perfect, because now you can build in darkness. While they think you're harmless, you're constructing the leverage file, mapping alliances, identifying weak points, testing who's loyal and who's transactional. And when you finally move, when you make the acquisition, launch the product, form the partnership, execute the strategy, they never saw it coming because they forgot you were dangerous. Here's what this looks like in practice. You're in a new company, first 90 days. You ask how the email system works. You struggle with the CRM. You take longer on simple tasks. They categorize you. Not a threat, needs hand-holding. Meanwhile, you're mapping who has real authority versus who has titles, who makes decisions after hours, who's resentful, who's planning an exit, who's having an affair with whom. You're not learning the job, you're learning the architecture. And when you make your move, when you propose the restructure, the acquisition, the strategic pivot, you know exactly who will support it and who will resist. You've already built the coalition. They never saw you coming because you limped for 90 days. The fool's mask is the sovereign's reconnaissance tool. Information asymmetry is the only sustainable advantage. Read that again. Information asymmetry, the only sustainable advantage. Machiavelli warned, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The distance between appearance and reality, that's your operational space. The larger that distance, the more leverage you have. But here's the infection happening right now. You explain your strategy, you share your timeline, you reveal your suppliers, your methods, your mentors, your next 3 moves. You think it's collaboration, it's asset liquidation. Every word you speak is territory you surrender. Every answer you give is a map you hand over. Every time you explain how you did something, you've armed your competition. The question is not, what should I say? The question is, what do I lose by saying this? And most of you are bleeding intelligence every single day. Someone asks about your business. You explain the model, the margins, the acquisition strategy, the suppliers you use, the software stack, the pricing structure. You think you're networking. You're conducting surveillance on yourself. Here's the tactical reversal. When asked about your business, you say, still figuring it out. When asked about your methods, trial and error mostly. When asked about your timeline, no rush, just exploring. Vague answers aren't evasion. They're operational security. They protect the asymmetry because while you say nothing, you ask everything. You extract their playbook, their fears, their suppliers, their breaking points, their hiring plans, their cash runway. The silent player hears what the loud player never will. People fill silence. It's uncomfortable. So they talk, they explain, they reveal. And you just nod. You just listen, you absorb, and every piece of information they give you is leverage you didn't have before. Here's what most people don't understand. Silence isn't withholding. It's not rude. It's not antisocial. Silence is a weapon. It forces the other person to reveal, to justify, to fill the void. And in that filling, they expose themselves. The interrogation doesn't begin with questions. It begins with silence that demands filling. Try this. Next meeting, next negotiation, next coffee with a peer. Speak 30% less. When they ask about your plans, give vague, non-specific answers. Then ask about theirs. and watch. Watch how much they reveal. Watch how they justify their decisions. Watch how they try to impress you. Watch how they expose their entire operational framework because you simply stayed quiet. You're not being mysterious, you're being asymmetrical. They're transparent, you're opaque. That asymmetry is leverage. That's the gap where power lives. Most people talk because they need validation. They need to be seen as smart, strategic, successful. So they explain, they justify, they perform. And every performance is a leak. You don't need to be seen. You need to see. You don't need to be understood. You need to understand. The silent player controls the board because they have the map and no one else does. The interrogation doesn't begin with questions. It begins with silence that demands filling. Obligation is invisible leverage. Machiavelli's formula. Men are less hesitant about harming someone who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared. But above all, create dependency. Translation, don't make them love you. Don't make them fear you. Make them need you. And make sure they don't know it's you they need. Here's the infection. You help people publicly. You want credit immediately. You attach your name to every favor. You post about who you helped. You make sure they know it was you. Recognition feels like power. It's not. It's a bill you'll never collect. Because when they know you helped them, they resent it. Not immediately, but eventually. The debt becomes uncomfortable. They avoid you. They rationalize why they don't owe you. They reframe the favor as something they earn or something you benefited from too. Public help creates public debt, and public debt gets renegotiated. Here's the surgical alternative. Help through intermediaries. Solve their problem through a third party, engineer the solution, deploy it through someone else. Let someone else deliver what you architected. They owe someone else. But you know the truth. The debt exists, but it has no face, no invoice, no signature. Here's how this works tactically. Someone needs a connection. You have it, but you don't make the introduction directly. You tell a mutual friend, "Hey, I think person A and person B should meet. Can you make that happen?" The mutual friend makes the intro. Person A and person B benefit. They thank the mutual friend, but you engineered it. The debt exists in the system, but it's not attached to your name yet. When you need something, 6 months later, a year later, you activate the proxy. You mention to person A, "I think you should connect with person C about this." And they do it immediately. Because somewhere in their subconscious, they remember that good things happen in your proximity. They don't know why, but they comply. That's invisible leverage. Here's another application. Someone in your network is struggling. Financially, operationally, doesn't matter. You anonymously solve it. A tip sent through a third party. Someone mentioned you should look into X. A check sent from an LLC they don't recognize. An introduction made through someone else. They receive the help. Their situation improves, but they don't know the source. Later, months, years, you need something. You casually mention to them, "You know, I think I know who helped you back then." You don't say it directly, you just imply. Watch how fast they move for you. Because now the debt has a face, and the debt has compounded with mystery. They don't just owe you, they owe you for something they thought was luck or providence or coincidence. That's a different category of obligation. Here's the compounding effect. 20 people owe you. None of them know. You've deployed favors through proxies for years. Anonymous help, ghost solutions, invisible interventions. One day you need something. You activate one proxy. They deliver. The other 19 don't even know you called in a marker. The network thinks it was goodwill. You know it was a contract signed in invisible ink. This is how you build leverage that can't be renegotiated. Because they don't know the terms. They don't even know the contract exists until you need it. And then it's too late to refuse. The puppet that sees the strings is the only puppet that rebels. Strategic fumbling disarms surveillance. Competence makes you a target. Excellence puts crosshairs on your back. Mastery means every move you make is analyzed, predicted, countered. Machiavelli understood this. Never show your full capabilities. Let your enemies believe they understand your limits. Because once they know what you can do, they know what to defend against. Once they measure your capacity, they calibrate their response. Once they see your ceiling, they know exactly how much force is required to contain you. So you hide it, not through absence, through performance. The theater of incompetence. Here's the mechanism. In public, you struggle visibly with simple tasks. You miss obvious opportunities. You make small, recoverable mistakes. You fumble. Let them laugh. Let them think you're lucky, not lethal, because their laughter is your invisibility cloak. When they dismiss you, they stop monitoring you. When they think you're incompetent, they stop preparing for you. When they believe they understand your limits, they never see the ceiling you're actually operating at. And that gap between what they think you can do and what you actually can do, that's operational space. Here's what this looks like tactically. You're in a meeting. Industry terminology comes up. You mispronounce it. You ask what it means, even though you know, even though you've used that term for 5 years. Why? Because now they think you're new, inexperienced, not a threat in that domain. They stop guarding their expertise around you. They explain things. They reveal their framework. They show you the architecture of their thinking, all because you pretended not to know a word. Another example, you're given a project. It's simple. You could complete it in 2 hours. Instead, you take 2 days. You ask for help. You struggle visibly with parts that are elementary. Why? Because now they think you're at capacity. They think this level of complexity challenges you. They've measured your ceiling, and they measured it wrong. So when the real project comes, the one that matters, the one with stakes, they don't give it to you. They give it to someone else, someone they think is more capable. Perfect. Because now you can watch how they execute it. You can see their strategy, their mistakes, their blind spots. And when it fails, or even when it succeeds, you know exactly how to do it better. But they never saw you as competition because you were fumbling with the simple stuff. Here's the deeper layer. When you excel at everything publicly, you become the person everyone watches. Every success you have is studied. Every method you use is copied. Every move you make is anticipated. You think you're building a reputation. You're building a surveillance file. But when you fumble publicly and excel privately, in darkness, in shadow, where no one's measuring, you build asymmetry. They think you're a 6. You're actually a 9. That gap of 3 points, that's where you operate. That's where you make moves they never predicted because they never thought you were capable. The tiger that limps is dismissed until the throat is open. Here's the tactical protocol. Identify the skills that matter. Master them in private. But in public, struggle with them. Ask basic questions. Make recoverable errors. Let people explain things to you. And here's the part that requires discipline. When someone corrects you, thank them, genuinely. Let them feel superior. Let them think they taught you something. Because that superiority is sedation. They're not watching you anymore. They're basking in their own expertise. And while they bask, you're 3 moves ahead. This isn't about being fake. This is about being asymmetrical. You're not lying about your capabilities. You're controlling the information about your capabilities. There's a difference. Lying is unsustainable. It collapses under scrutiny. But strategic ambiguity, strategic fumbling, that's sustainable because you're not claiming to be incompetent. You're just not claiming to be competent. You're letting them assume, and assumptions are the gaps where power lives. One more thing, this doesn't mean you're invisible. You're present, you're participating, you're engaged. You're just not dominant. You're not the smartest person in the room. You're not the one with all the answers. You're the one asking questions, and questions extract more than answers ever give. The tiger that limps is dismissed until the throat is open. Win from a position they don't know exists. This is the final form. Machiavelli's ultimate insight. The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers. The one who appears weak when strong, and strong when weak, he transcends the times. He's describing something most people never reach, a state where perception and reality are so decoupled that you operate in a dimension they can't even see. They think you're harmless. You control the board. They think you're struggling. Your assets compound in shadow. They think you're lucky. You engineered every outcome. They dismiss you. You've already won. This is the sovereign ghost. Power isn't a title. It's not a position on an org chart. It's not a corner office or a blue check mark. Power is the ability to alter outcomes without anyone knowing you touched them. The silent edit, the invisible veto, the suggestion that becomes policy. Here's how this operates. You never command. You influence through questions. Not, "We should do this." Instead, "Have we considered this?" Not, "This is the right move." Instead, "What if we approached it from this angle?" You plant seeds. You don't make declarations. And here's why this works. When you tell someone what to do, they resist. Ego, autonomy, the human need to feel in control. But when you ask a question, they think. And when they think, they arrive at conclusions. And when they arrive at conclusions on their own, they believe it was their idea. And the idea they claim is the idea they execute. You didn't convince them. You architected the conditions for them to convince themselves. That's Ghost Protocol. Here's the tactical application. You're in a business. The company is making a strategic mistake. You see it. You could say it directly, "This strategy will fail." But if you do that, you're on record. You're the dissenter. You're the one who doubted leadership. And if you're wrong, or even if you're right, you've made enemies. Instead, you ask, "What's our contingency if the market shifts?" Or, "Have we stress tested this against the competitor's likely response?" You didn't say the strategy is bad. You asked a question. But that question plants doubt. Someone else will voice it. Someone else will raise the concern. And when the strategy pivots, it'll be because the team raised good questions. Not because you opposed it. You influenced the outcome. But you left no fingerprints. That's sovereign invisibility. Here's another layer. The sovereign ghost doesn't want credit. Credit is exposure. Credit is a target. When something succeeds, let someone else take the spotlight. Let them get promoted. Let them get praised. You know the truth. You architected it. But they don't need to know. Because while they're basking in recognition, you're building the next outcome. And the next. And the next. And over time, a pattern emerges, but only to those paying very close attention. Things go well in your proximity. Projects succeed when you're involved. Problems get solved after you ask certain questions. But no one can point to you as the architect. You're the ghost in the system. Here's what this looks like at scale. You're in an organization. You don't have the title. You're not the CEO or the VP. But over time, decisions only get made after you've been consulted. Not formally. No one would say it out loud. But informally, they run it by you. They get your take. They ask what you think. And your take becomes the framework. You never commanded. You never demanded. You just asked good questions and gave subtle guidance. And over time, you became the invisible veto. Nothing moves without your implicit approval. But your name is on nothing. That's sovereign power. Here's the final insight. The throne belongs to the man who never sat in it, because the man on the throne is visible. He's the target. Every decision is scrutinized. Every move is political. Every misstep is amplified. But the man behind the throne, the one whispering in the ear, the one asking the right questions at the right time, he's invisible. And invisibility is invincibility. You want nothing publicly. You control everything privately. Your name on nothing. Your fingerprints on everything. When they write the history, you're a footnote. When you count the assets, you're the ghost who owns the empire. The throne belongs to the man who never sat in it. Right now, you are visible, measured, predictable. Every social post is a tactical briefing for your competition. Every celebration is advance warning of your next move. Every goal you announce is a target you paint on your own back. Let me show you what I mean. Your LinkedIn shows your strategy, your career trajectory, your skills, your endorsements, your thought leadership, your network. It's not a resume, it's a dossier. Your Instagram shows your schedule, your location, your habits, your relationships, your vulnerabilities, when you're distracted, when you're celebrating, when you're off guard. It's not a feed, it's a surveillance grid. Your conversations reveal your suppliers, your mentors, your influences. your next moves, your cash position, your breaking points. You think you're networking. You're conducting reconnaissance on yourself. And here's the fracture. You think authenticity is strength. It's not. It's exposure. You think transparency builds trust. It doesn't. It builds target maps. You're not being vulnerable. You're bleeding intelligence. This is prey behavior. The gazelle that doesn't hide. The one that announces its position. The one that celebrates in the open. And the ecosystem adjusts. Predators don't hunt the hidden. They hunt the visible. They hunt the predictable. They hunt the one who makes it easy. Right now, you're making it easy. Here's the diagnostic. Count how many people could destroy your next move right now with the information you've freely given them, your timeline, your partnerships, your funding status, your product specs, your go-to-market strategy. How many? 5, 10, 50? Every one of those people is a point of failure, not because they're malicious, but because they know. And what's known can be leaked, can be copied, can be countered. You are the architect of your own ambush. Here's what's happening at the identity level. You've been conditioned to believe that visibility equals legitimacy, that presence equals power, that if people don't see you grinding, you're not grinding. So you post about waking up at 5 a.m. You share your reading list, you document the journey, you celebrate small wins publicly, and you think this is personal branding. It's not. It's tactical suicide dressed up as authenticity, because every post is a data point, every story is a pattern, every celebration is a signal, and patterns can be predicted. Signals can be intercepted. You're not building a brand. You're running a surveillance operation on yourself. And here's the worst part. You've trained your nervous system to need the validation, the likes, the comments, the keep going, king messages. You've become dependent on visibility for your sense of progress. That dependence is a leash, and someone else is holding it. Here's the identity shift that has to happen. You have to kill the need to be seen. You have to kill the urge to be understood. You have to kill the dopamine loop of external validation. Not because visibility is evil, but because it's expensive, and the cost is asymmetry. Every time you're visible, you lose leverage. Every time you explain, you lose mystery. Every time you celebrate, you lose the element of surprise. And surprise is the only advantage that can't be purchased. Right now, you are a sleeper. You're in the dream that transparency equals power, that being seen equals being legitimate. But the sovereign, the ghost, the one who actually controls outcomes, he's invisible. He doesn't post. He doesn't explain. He doesn't celebrate until it's over, until the contracts are signed, until the acquisition closes, until the empire is built. And even then, he might not celebrate publicly because he knows the next move is already in progress, and visibility compromises it. You are the architect of your own ambush. The Purge, days 1 through 7. Delete every public statement about future plans, every coming soon post, every big things in the works tease, every hint about what you're building. No explanations, no new strategy announcement, no post about why you're going dark. Just silence. Let them wonder. Wondering is the first stage of irrelevance in their threat model. When you disappear from their feed, you disappear from their strategic calculus. They stop preparing for you. They stop tracking you. They assume you quit, or pivoted, or failed. Perfect. The decoy. Days 8 through 30. Now you don't stay completely silent. That's suspicious. Instead, you feed false ambitions, mention projects you'll never do, express interest in industries you'll never enter, ask questions about domains you have no intention of mastering. Let them prepare for the wrong war. You casually mention you're exploring e-commerce. You're not, but now they think you are. They watch the e-commerce space. They prepare to compete there. Meanwhile, you're building in an entirely different sector. Their counter strategy is aimed at a ghost. Their resources are deployed against a phantom. And you're operating in a space they're not even watching. The void, days 31 through 90. This is the critical window. This is where you build in absolute silence, no updates, no milestones, no progress posts, no behind-the-scenes content. You develop assets that won't be visible for 6 months. You master skills no one knows you're learning. You form alliances with people no one knows you've met. You're in the abyss, and the abyss is where asymmetry is born. During this phase, you will feel the withdrawal, the urge to post, the urge to share, the urge to get feedback or validation or credit. Ignore it. That urge is the leash, and you're cutting it. Every day you resist the urge to be visible is a day you compound your advantage. Because while you're silent, you're learning, you're building, you're positioning, and they have no idea. The incompetence theater, ongoing. This isn't a phase. This is a permanent protocol. In public forums, you ask basic questions. You struggle with tasks you've mastered. You let people explain elementary concepts to you. Every time they do, they reveal their framework, their assumptions, their limits. You're not learning from them. You're mapping them. You know how the CRM works, but you ask anyway. And when they explain it, they also explain their workflow, their bottlenecks, their inefficiencies. You just gained operational intelligence while appearing incompetent. That's the protocol, the loyalty audit. Day 91. Now you've been dark for 3 months. See who reaches out, who asks if you're okay, who tries to extract information, who offers help, who disappears completely. This audit reveals the org chart of your life. Genuine versus transactional. Asset versus liability. Ally versus observer. The people who reach out with no agenda, they're rare. They're assets. The people who reach out fishing for information, they're threats. They're monitoring you. The people who disappear, they were never there. They were attached to your visibility, not your value. This audit is cold, but it's necessary because you're about to reemerge. And when you do, you need to know who's in the inner circle and who's in the outer darkness. The kill command. This is the hardest part. This is the surgery. You have to kill the need for validation. Kill the urge to be seen. Kill the dopamine loop of recognition. This isn't about becoming antisocial. This isn't about isolation. This is about sovereignty. You have to reach a state where your sense of progress is internal, where you don't need external confirmation to know you're moving forward, where you can build for 6 months without anyone knowing and feel no anxiety about it. That state, that's operational freedom. Because when you don't need to be seen, you can't be manipulated through visibility. When you don't need validation, you can't be controlled through approval. You become ungovernable. This is the abyss. And the abyss is not punishment. It's not exile. It's the place where you stop performing power and start architecting it. Enter it. Stay there as long as it takes. And when you emerge, if you emerge, you'll be asymmetrical, unpredictable, invisible. And that's when you own the board. The wolf doesn't post about the hunt. Most people will close this video right now. They'll return to posting their vision boards, their goal sheets, their morning routines. They'll announce their next move. They'll celebrate early. They'll document the journey. They'll keep being loud, visible, and irrelevant. And that's fine, because the doctrine I just gave you isn't for everyone. Most people can't handle operational darkness. They need the light. They need the validation. They need to be seen. It's not a moral failure. It's a design feature. They were built for visibility, for performance, for the stage. But you're still here. That means something fractured, something shifted. You've felt the sting of being outmaneuvered by someone you underestimated. Or worse, you felt the sting of being too visible, too early, too honest. You shared your plan, someone executed it faster. You announced your launch. Someone launched the same thing 2 weeks before. You celebrated a win. Someone used that information against you. And you realized transparency isn't trust, it's exposure. Here's the truth the algorithm doesn't want you to hear. If you disappear from their surveillance grid, you can't be monetized. Visibility is their product. Your attention, your content, your engagement. That's the transaction. So they've conditioned you to believe that if you're not visible, you don't exist. If you're not posting, you're not progressing. If you're not documenting, you're not legitimate. But that's their framework, not reality's. Reality doesn't care if you post. Reality cares if you execute. And execution happens in shadow. You understand now. True power doesn't perform. It operates, it doesn't announce, it executes. The throne belongs to those who never said they wanted it, because the ones who announce their ambition become targets. The ones who celebrate their ascent get studied. The ones who document their strategy get copied. But the ones who move in silence, who build in darkness, who win without anyone knowing they were playing, they're sovereign, and sovereignty can't be taken, because no one knows you have it. In a world of noise, be the silence that shatters empires. Don't subscribe because I asked. Subscribe as a contract with your sovereign self, a signal that you've entered operational darkness, that you're done performing power and ready to architect it. This isn't content, it's doctrine. And doctrine requires commitment, not consumption. The people who subscribe and then return to posting every move, they didn't understand. They heard the words, they didn't feel the fracture. But if you're subscribing because something in you recognized the pattern, because you've been burned by transparency, outmaneuvered by silence, ambushed by your own visibility, then you're ready. You're entering the Ghost Protocol, and the Ghost Protocol is irreversible. Once you see how power actually operates, you can't unsee it. Once you understand that visibility is a tax, you can't go back to paying it willingly. You'll still be present, you'll still engage, but you'll be asymmetrical. They'll see what you want them to see, they'll know what you want them to know, they'll predict the moves you want them to predict, and the real moves, the ones that matter, those happen in the dark. Welcome to Dark Veil Psychology. The most dangerous force is the one they never saw coming.